Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you again. My name is Dustin Cormier. Welcome to How to Rock Astrology. Today is another episode on, you guessed it, Rahu and Ketu in our Rahu and Ketu series. In this series, I've been basically taking the best of my notes from my classes with Ryan Kirksack in his Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship program. It's Tropical Vedic Astrology, mind you. And I am taking the best of my notes from the class on Rahu and Ketu and trying to bring them to you guys, siphoning them into concise points. With this video in particular, I'm going to outline the nature of Rahu and Ketu in a chart. In our first video, we kind of just talked about the nature of Rahu and Ketu in general. Now, we're eventually going to talk about how Ketu is paired up with Mars and Rahu is paired up with Saturn. It's basically our next video. But before we get into that, I want to read you guys an excerpt from one of the essays. This is basically the whole essay, because there's a lot of good stuff in here. One of my personally written essays for the course that we did. It's essentially, our intention was to write about Rahu and Virgo, Rahu in a sign, and what it means, what are the implications of having Rahu in a sign, how do you interpret it, and so this essay is mostly going to be talking about how to interpret Rahu, how to interpret when it's good, and we're going to be pointing at, we're not going to get into the details until we get into case studies, but this is an overlook on how to define Rahu and Ketu. So, there's lots to talk about, so I believe that I'm just going to get started. The mysterious nodes are difficult to describe. While their effects will always contain a shroud of... I guess I should say, this is my essay that I've got right in front of me. That's why I'm reading it in this way. Now, the nodes are difficult to describe. While their effects will always contain a shroud of unpredictability, there are ways of generally defining whether the experience of a node in a person's life will turn out to be a difficult one or a satisfying one. And what a person can do to remedy any experiences therein that might be ultimately detrimental to their mental health. A little bit of toughness in our reality is important. This goes to show why Saturn is important for the whole picture, but particularly when dealing with Rahu. And also Mars. Mars holds us together and keeps us efficient overall. Saturn is what allows us to remain, to endure through hard transformative times, whether that's because of Ketu or Rahu. Mars helps us stay. Rahu helps us maintain the psyche that can keep exploring new territory. So, I mean, basically, Rahu and Ketu are always bound to bring some difficulty. It's if their lords are placed well, and if they're placed in good, healthy houses that have good aspects, then it will still be difficult, but it will be satisfying, and it will help enrich and grow the desires and impulses of the king and queen, that being the sun and moon. So, the teachers of every astrology lineage take great pains to clarify their schema of interpreting the nodes' position in a chart. Tropical Vedic Astrology, as we have taken it from Ernst Wilhelm and Ryan Kirksack, we generally boil it down to a combination of factors, including house prosperity, as well as the dignity, Shadbala, Lajatati Avashtas, and auspicious yogas, and graha aspects that the nodes are involved in throughout the Vargas. you might notice that I'm taking a similar schema from what I did with my Outer Planets series. It's the same sort of thing. But Rahu and Ketu are more intrinsic to our energy field and to our soul and to the meaning why we're here than the outer planets are. Or at least, shall we say, they are more central. Although the outer planets can be equally as central in a person's life if they're placed more prominently than the nodes are. It all has to do with whether the nodes, Rahu and Ketu, are with significant factors in your chart, such as being conjunct the Lagna, or conjunct the Lagna Lord, conjunct of an important angular house cusp, if it's in the 10th house, if it's touching the 10th Lord, or if it's with an outer planet, or if it is particularly the huge one is, well, auspicious yogas is a huge one, but also Gemini Karakas. If the Rahu Lord, if Rahu is touching your Atmakaraka, or if it's an aspect to it, or if it's touching the Lord of the Atmakaraka, these are all deeply significant things to the soul. So, these are things that determine the significance. And the condition of, no matter what the significance is, we all have to deal with Rahu and Ketu. Now, how will we deal with Rahu and Ketu? The condition of the house and lord of the nodes, meaning if Rahu's in Virgo, then the lord is Mercury. And if you're a Virgo rising, that means it's in the first house, right? It's the house and lord of the nodes that determine a person's capacity to gain traction in the realm of the unconscious, to which these shadow planets are impulsively shackled. It's Rahu and Ketu. They're not planets per se, but they're shadows of all the planets. This article aims to suggest, this essay, this video aims to suggest that both Rahu and Ketu can represent positive figures of neurological reactive programming, in the sense of Ketu, or impulsive ambition and willpower, in the sense of Rahu. These shadow planets bring these things, and they seem bad, too willful from Rahu, too neurological reactive from Ketu, but they can be positive if they are auspiciously aligned and properly channeled. What I always like to say is that if you have the karma of someone who does not have these figurations easily aligned, then it's going to be tough for you to make them happen. But you must be where you are because what you've been doing, and every person's spiritual lessons is important where they are. You might have a time dealing with it. You might have ways of remedying your situation if your planets are not well placed. If the Lord of Rahu does not have the proper resources and psyche with which to express its Lord at its purest nature, then it's going to have to deal with wasted energy. It's going to maybe even be a little bit traumatized. We're going to kind of talk about that. But no matter what, you can always take what your karma is and find the proper way to use it, especially if you consult an astrologer and find help in this regard. It's just tricky because Rahu and Ketu are talked about in many different sort of ways. Now, everyone must use the planets in their chart in a balanced way in order to be healthy. So a person can't ignore the activities of a node of Rahu or Ketu simply because its nature, its house, and its dispositor, its lord, are antagonistic to the Lagna or to some other preferential part of the personality, right? If you are a Leo rising like me, and if you have Rahu in Capricorn like me, and Saturn and the Sun don't exactly get along, I as a Leo rising, I still have to deal with Rahu. It's an ugly thing, but I can't just ignore it. I can't just try to get away from it. It's not conducive to what Leo's trying to do, but at the same time, it's great. It's got great karmic capacity. There's a something there in Rahu that I need to figure out, even though in Saturn and Capricorn, that me as a Leo needs to figure out, even though Leo is not the best biggest fan of all things related to Saturn. So you can't ignore it just because it doesn't line up with a preferential part of your personality. The relationship of a node's sign with the Lagna determines the auspiciousness of that node to the Lagna in a deep, deep way. The all-important Lagna really defines whether Rahu or Ketu, the nature of them, coincides with the nature of the life path that you're living, because that's what the Ascendant is. It's the physical world, it's the earth, it's the life path, it's the reality that unfolds in front of you. And if Rahu and its Lord are good friends with that life path, then it'll probably be easier to deal with Rahu or Ketu. So, the relationship of a node's sign with the Lagna determines the auspiciousness of the node, or the capacity to really be able to maneuver the node and its energy. Because the Lagna represents the natural life path. Since Rahu and Ketu are on an axis, they're opposites to each other, it's likely that either Rahu's Lord or Ketu's Lord will be friends with the Lagna, the rising sign, while the other will be neutral or antagonistic. And this says something about the duality of Rahu and Ketu. Do you understand what I mean? Usually, the fire signs get along with the water signs in the planetary friendship schema. You'll notice that, for example, Mars is ruled by Aries. Mars rules Aries, which is a fire sign, and also Scorpio, which is a water sign. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, but also Pisces, which is a water sign. And then the Sun and the Moon are friends. So Sun, Moon, Jupiter, and Mars are all good pals. And if you're a Leo rising and you have Rahu in Sagittarius, then Rahu is good friends with the Leo rising, because it's in the 5th house. But that means that Ketu is in Gemini, and Mercury is not the best friend of the Sun. So that means that Ketu is going to be having the hard thing that you're going to have to deal with there. Now let's switch it around. I'm a Leo rising, and I have Ketu in Cancer, which means that I'm really used to using the moon as my energy, and the moon jives well with Leo. It's an emotional attunement. It's something that I really stick on. I stick to it too much because it's Ketu. I can be too emotional, and sometimes my emotions limits the ceiling of my potential. But this is just the nature of it, is that either you're going to get along easier with Ketu, or you're going to get along easier with Rahu. And what I've written in my essay is that it should be noted that both situations are equally desirable, karmically speaking. No one has really got more opportunity to express spiritual heights than another person per se. Well, I guess I shouldn't quite say that, but there is a possibility to do that. But if somebody is born into a great spiritual avatar whose karma is just swoosh, they're just a bodhisattva like already, and they just needed to do this one incarnation to get all of it done. Even if somebody that has that kind of glory in their karma, what I like to say is that the bloom of a morning glory, which is one day, a morning glory is a flower. And one day passes and it's got a bloom and then it's gone. And then the next day it's got a bloom and it's gone. And actually, I guess I should say overall, it lasts like a season. It lasts a summer. And then it's a perennial. It comes back the next year and then it disappears. Comes back next year and it disappears. The bloom of a morning glory, which lasts a season, is just as special, just as significant, just as much of a bloom as the bloom of the great oak tree, which lasts 1,000 years. In the eyes of God, it is all, every 1 second is the meaning of it all. And the morning glory has just as much glory there. So that's what I'm getting at there. Which basically means that no matter what your situation in your chart, whatever bit of, even if you don't get glory, even if you backslide in this life, that backslide is going to swish you forward through Rahu and Ketu in your next incarnation. Everything happens for a reason. Don't want to get too cosmic philosophical here. The lords of the nodes, being in certain signs, further defines the bias of this relationship between the nodes and the Lagna in a chart. So what do I mean by this? Like, let's think, for example, if you have Rahu in Scorpio, that means that Mars is going to channel your Rahu energy, okay? Now, let's take that Mars and put it in Pisces. Pisces and Scorpio are in a natural harmony. They're both water signs. They're both, Mars and Jupiter are best friends because they're both water signs. So, if we have Rahu in Scorpio and its lord Mars is in Pisces, it's a good setup on its own, right? Now, imagine if this was coming through a Gemini rising. That would entail, maybe I can give you guys just a little quick little picture just so we can kind of get a sense, because the idea here is that that type of situation, that kind of like picture where we have the Rahu so this is a Gemini rising chart, right? Let's put Rahu in Scorpio here. And Mars is going to be in Pisces. Can I move this thing around? Good. If Rahu is in Scorpio and Mars is in Pisces, Rahu's lord is in a sign that works well with Rahu's house. The problem here is that this is doubly ill for a Gemini rising because Scorpio is the 8th house. Mars is in fact actually, I'm sorry, is that the 6th house? So Mars rules the 6th house and the 11th house, both of which are like some of the, really the two evilest houses for a Gemini Lagna, for anybody. The 6th house we know has negative connotations, and so does the 11th, has egoic connotations. It's desire for gain at the expense of yourself, in a way. If it's well placed, then that's not a bad thing, but you know, it's just like anything. There are inauspicious houses, but just because the 6th house is inauspicious doesn't mean it's not important. You have to use that negative karma. In the same way that Saturn sucks, but if it's well placed, then it doesn't suck that bad, and you've got to use it either way. So, if we're dealing with Rahu down here in Scorpio, with Mars in Pisces, for a Gemini Lagna, Mars is the 6th lord and the 11th lord. And so Mars, for a Gemini, having Rahu in the 6th house is tough for well, it's actually not that tough because Rahu does well in the 6th house. That's a whole thing. But I digress. This is a tougher picture for a Gemini rising, because Mars here it's in the 10th house, which is not bad, but Mars is the 6th and 11th lord, and that's hard. This is much harder than it is for a Cancer rising, okay? Because now Rahu is in the auspicious 5th house, and the 5th lord is also the 10th lord here. And the 5th and 10th house lord, Mars is much better for a Cancer than it is for a Gemini. Partly because Gemini rules Mercury, and Mercury is an air sign, and Mercury rules an air and an earth sign. Mercury and Mars do not get along at all. Again, Gemini has to use Mars, but it just doesn't get along with it. So a Gemini is going to have a hard time dealing with Rahu if Rahu's in Scorpio, especially if it's in Pisces, because both of those are antagonistic to Gemini. For a Cancer, though, if we have the positive fifth house has Rahu in it, and Rahu's lord is Mars, is in Pisces. Not only is that good because Pisces and Mars are Pisces is a good place for Mars, but this is doubly good because this is in the 9th house for Cancer. So everything for a Cancer rising is looking very good here. But it's much more difficult to have Rahu and Scorpio with Mars and Pisces for a Gemini Lagna. Now, I know I just took a lot to explain that, but you got to understand that this is a clue to the deeper experience of what Rahu and its lord means to the Lagna, to the Ascendant, and vice versa. You know, we could take, any astrologer can just say, oh, you have Rahu in Scorpio, and it's in your 6th house. Well, I mean, you know, you can read into that as not being a good thing no matter what. I digress. The point is to show the relationship of Rahu's sign to the Lagna. If Rahu is friendly to the Lagna and it's placed somewhere that supports the Lagna, like in the case of this Cancer, we've got the 5th house Rahu and it's in the 9th house. Mars, its ruler, is in the 9th house. So we're gonna let's consider from this perspective of the Cancer, and let's take a look at what happens when Rahu is good and it's working effectively. If Rahu's lord is friendly to the Lagna, and it's in a place somewhere that also supports the Lagna, and all the other it's got positive aspects to the lord as well as the house, it usually grants positive growth experiences, which are always worth their wear on the person. Rahu is still going to give you tough things that you've got to deal with, but the person will probably be glad to be getting away from Ketu, if anything, because Rahu is in a positive placement here. It may even be very satisfying, though they're likely, whatever Rahu brings is still going to be likely to be intense and difficult, no matter what, because no worthy aspiration of the soul ever came without effort. The only problem in such a situation is that Ketu would have to be ill-placed in the Lagna by comparison. In this case, it's going to be in Taurus. And this would prove worse for the Cancer Lagna than it would for the Gemini Lagna. All right, let's take one last little peeky poo at what we were just looking at. Okay, so now we're looking at Ketu being here in Taurus. Now, Taurus is, this A means auspicious. The I's here mean inauspicious. This comes from Brihat Parasha or Horus Shastra and from my classes with Ryan Kirkzak. So for a Gemini, it's actually Taurus rules the 12th house. And usually the 12th house is neutral, but for a Gemini, Venus rules Libra, which is the 5th lord, and also Taurus, which is the 12th lord. And the goodness of the 5th house automatically makes the neutralness of the 12th auspicious. So Venus is good for Gemini. And that makes sense because Gemini is an air sign and Libra is also an air sign. They jive together. Venus, Saturn, and Mercury all rule the air and earth signs and are all, usually they're all best friends between each other. So, since we know that Venus is auspicious and the houses that Venus owns are auspicious to a Gemini rising, this means that Taurus is auspicious to Gemini and it's friendly to Gemini. So when we take this, oh, it's this tough placement with Rahu and Scorpio for a Gemini, that's okay because this Gemini has strength in Taurus, strength in Ketu. I mean, of course, it's going to depend on the placement of Venus to express its highest potentials, because then that makes Venus is the Ketu lord. But just based on what the Lagna has going on here, if we have Ketu in Taurus, this is a positive thing for the Gemini rising, because Venus is attached to the 5th house. So wherever Venus is, the 5th house is going to help inspire creativity in order to sustain the energy field. The person will eventually get bored of it because it's Ketu. It's not as satisfying as Rahu. They will have to deal with Rahu and Scorpio eventually. But they will at least enjoy maintaining and sustaining their energy field in themselves, because Ketu will enjoy sustaining itself in the 12th house. And again, Rahu in the 6th and Ketu in the 12th is well known to be a good position. Now the point is here is that for the Cancer rising, right, this goes to show how important the Lagna is here. That's what I'm trying to say. If you're a Gemini, having Rahu in Scorpio can tend to suck. If you're a Cancer, having Rahu in Scorpio can be good, but it's trade-off. You're sacrificing one way or the other. For the Cancer here, we have a person who is ready to adapt. They enjoy any moment where they have to bleed into this adaptation of whatever's going on, because the Rahu is in the 5th house. But they might have, this Cancer person might have a harder time when they are not being moved around, when they're not being forced to transform. They might just get bored, because here Ketu is now in the inauspicious 11th house for a Cancer. That means that this person is addicted to the artifice of having gains, addicted to luxury, addicted to that which the 5th house is supposed to bring. So they might use they'll have a hard time using Rahu in the 5th in directing and using their intelligence in 5th house creativity. It's harder for them because what they're used to is leaning on their groups, leaning on people around them. This is what happens when you got Ketu in the 11th house. It's that you've lived in your past lives by having other people, by looking good to other people, by creating an idea group, finding a group of people and ideals and humanitarian things, which you're working for these humanitarian ideals, but at the expense of not being able to express what you are, express your creativity. That's the 5th house thing. If you've got Rahu in the 5th house, then you're not good at using your own creativity. So I digress. You know, I could go on forever just about the placement of Rahu in Scorpio, but I want to keep this centered on the material that we're talking about. I'm so sorry about the noise that must be making. Whatever. Trying to deal with all my technology here. So the point is that Taurus, having Ketu in Taurus, proves tougher for the Cancer, for Lagna, than it does for the Gemini. The Gemini can deal with Ketu in Taurus very easily, but you know, you can see that there's a trade-off between the Lagnas there. But again, while there's always a bias of either Rahu or Ketu towards the Lagna Lord, towards the Ascendant, we must remember that having an easy, you gotta dig that no matter what the placement, it's positive, or it can be seen as positive. How should I say this? Actually, it's neither positive nor negative. That's what I'm trying to say. I think it's ultimately positive because I'm an optimist, but scientifically speaking, trying to be true and honest to the karma, because astrology is not all just optimistic. We have to be diligent about the figures and facts given in someone's karma. No matter where your Rahu and Ketu is, just purely on Rahu and Ketu's position from the Lagna, you're going to have one that's good and one that's bad, basically. But if the bad one is well placed, then you're not, it's a blessing because you're not going to lose that much from that bad planet. And then all you have to do is just reap the good planet, right? And if the good planet is not well placed, you won't get that much out of it. But at least the bad planet will be surviving well, right? Conversely, oh, that's a lot to think about. Conversely, if Rahu, I can't even think right now. Whatever the bias is towards the Lagna Lord, you're going to have one or the other who's good or bad. So, whatever that bias is, oh, okay, this is my point, is that there's going to be one that's good and one that's bad, but it's how the Lord of that sign is placed that brings out the true goodness or badness. Because again, for a Gemini, Lagna, if you've got Ketu in Taurus, that's your good node. And the Scorpio, Rahu, will be the bad node. But if Mars is well placed to the Lagna, then even though Rahu is ill to the Lagna, you won't lose that much out of it. It won't damage you that much because Mars has what it needs to express itself and it won't lose too much. And it'll be satisfied with it, and it'll even gain its satisfaction through a tough way because it's antagonistic to the Lagna. And at that point, Ketu in Taurus is just bringing you extra goodness because you're used to using Ketu, and it's well suited to the Lagna. You're not losing from the bad planet. You're only gaining from the good planet. Or, you know, again, if your good planet is not well placed, in this case, if that Venus from the Ketu in Taurus, if the Venus isn't well placed, then you won't be able to take the best advantage of the good node. In this case, it being Ketu in Taurus. I feel like I could go on about that. It's a little confusing, but hopefully you guys can see what I'm getting at here. Maybe I'll put up some pictures so I can clarify it. The point here is that no matter what the bias is, no matter what your Lagna is, we must remember that having an easy time with Ketu, having an easy time maintaining the energy field and understanding what the past is bringing you, that's if you've got a friendly, Ketu is friendly to the Lagna, like for that Gemini rising, having Ketu in Taurus. They would have an easier time maintaining what they've been, the status quo, their energy field. And that is just as impressive to the soul, it's just as easy, it's just as karmically benefic as having a good Rahu, which means having the ability to develop the instincts to endure hardships despite all obstacles. So it's just as good to be a Cancer who has a good Rahu in Scorpio as it is to be a Gemini who has a good Ketu in Taurus. They all balance out. It's up to the strength of the lords of the nodes to really show whether there will be really a strength or a weakness. So, with that being said, in order to define the indications and potentials of Rahu and Ketu, we must consider house prosperity, this list that Ryan's given us. It's house prosperity, dignity, Shadbala, Graha aspects, Lajatati Avashtas, and yogas that the node involves itself, the node and its lord involves itself in. And this is all throughout all the Vargas, remember. Always got to remember the Vargas. So let's consider Rahu and Virgo, okay? When Rahu is in Virgo and Ketu is in Pisces, ultimately the person wants to surrender some kind of bliss in their, they want to surrender to some kind of bliss in their lives. Ketu and Pisces, which they feel is consistently useful. Virgo, and yet releasing. Pisces. It's got to be something which speaks to the soul, Pisces, but is also realistic, practical, and useful for its own sake. Virgo. This is an example of the nodes being one, balancing into each other, integrating themselves, even though there can be a bias there. Different Lagnas will take to Rahu in Virgo. They'll take to the Rahu and to Mercury better than they will to the Pisces and the Ketu, right? Again, a Cancer would do better with this placement than a Virgo would. A Cancer would take to Ketu better, because Pisces is the 9th house for Cancer. So a Cancer rising would dig that Ketu in Pisces, but it would not enjoy the Rahu in Virgo. It would be the Rahu in Virgo represents a difficult thing for the Cancer Lagna to integrate. Whereas, for example, if it's Virgo rising, a Virgo rising would eat it up. A Virgo rising would deal better with Rahu, because Rahu is in the nature of the Lagna. Although having Rahu in your Lagna can be tough. It's its own thing. So many layers to deal with this, right? But maybe a better example would be Capricorn. A Capricorn would enjoy Rahu in its 9th house. In Virgo. Virgo is the 9th house from Capricorn. But then it would be having a harder time dealing with the Ketu and Pisces, because Capricorn and Pisces don't get along as much. The Cancer rising speaks to the soulfulness of Ketu and Pisces. Capricorn rising speaks to the practicality of Rahu and Virgo. Either way, no matter what, and either of these Lagnas has to integrate them. The Cancer Lagna would have to use how it would have to enjoy Ketu and Pisces and use that enjoyment to develop the psychological resources to learn how to be more practical in Virgo, because Cancer rising is already mystical and in tune to Pisces. Conversely, a Capricorn rising would use Rahu in Virgo, the practicality. A Capricorn's instinct would be to develop a lot on that 9th house. And it would be used to being practical anyway, and it would get an enjoyment out of Rahu. What a Capricorn in that instance would have to do is it would take a lot for it to learn how to just be still with what it is, how to understand how it can use its past life, Ketu, to develop something strong that can help it sustain itself, to remain integrated going forward in life with a positive Ketu. So, the Piscean, regardless of the Lagna, we're talking about Rahu and Virgo, Ketu and Pisces. The Pisces soulfulness of Ketu here, that might speak better to certain Lagnas, while Rahu and Virgo's more precise desires, the analyticalness, might suit others better, like Capricorn, like we said. But whatever the case, both of these nodes will always need one another as the yin to each other's yang. They stand on each other, and they're useless without each other. Just as a flower needs a bee, and a bee needs a flower. And this is one of my phrases that I've been wanting to say that really cinches this whole thing together. It's that when Rahu and Ketu are imbalanced, when you don't integrate them, then you're bound to manifest an excess of something meaningless, meaning the node that you're used to, and a lack of something meaningful, meaning the node that is difficult to integrate. What determines this imbalance is the health of the house and lord of the house in which Rahu and Ketu are placed. In this case, the lord of Rahu being Mercury, and the lord of Ketu's house in Pisces, that would be Jupiter. The health of Mercury, when you've got Rahu in Virgo, the health of Mercury shows how you can integrate Rahu, and if you have the resources to healthily express the desire to go forward with Rahu. And it's the opposite for Ketu through Jupiter. Jupiter is going to define whether Ketu can really express and do what Ketu needs to do in order to survive and thrive. Mercury here is the transmitter and stabilizer of Rahu's black hole energy in this placement. Now, since the attributes of any planet are amplified under Rahu's influence, the strengths and weaknesses of Mercury are in every way stronger or louder in a native's life, while the qualities of Jupiter, having Ketu in Pisces, Jupiter might be strangely quieter, yet more active, as if it were like this all too familiar background for one's experiences. That's kind of what Ketu does. It's the silent, mute reality that's just present. It's like this chain that is just like, when Ketu calls, it's like when nature calls. You gotta heed. You're gonna heed that call, whether you like it or not. If you don't, then you're gonna pee your pants. Or in Ketu's case, you're gonna pee your energy field, if that makes sense. For Rahu in Virgo's case, this loudness is also carried into bad placements of Mercury, such as if Mercury, we all have, even if you've got a pretty good Mercury, you're probably bound to have at least some bad things in it, and it'll be hard, it'll bring things that are hard to deal with. Like when Mercury, if you got Rahu and Virgo, and Mercury is starved or agitated in the Lajtati Avashtas, if it's associated with malefics or an evil house lord, if it has ill dignity and if it's got low Shadbala, then this loudness, whatever that thing is, if it's got ill Shadbala, the fact that it doesn't have the Shadbala to do what it needs to do, this will be loud. It will be very apparent in your experience that you do not have what you need to express your Mercury in a stable, consistent, and enjoyable way. Because Rahu is there. Rahu amplifies it. Now, on the other hand, Ketu amplifies the quietness in a way that you can't deal with it, even though you want to deal with how latched in you are to Ketu. The quietness of Jupiter, if Jupiter is ill-placed, if your Jupiter is like, it's debilitated in Capricorn, it's got ill dignity, Shadbala, all these things, then its quietness becomes more pronounced, such that the native easily loses touch with that root in themselves, even though this root, this Ketu, enforces an unconscious ceiling or limit for your approach to life. If Ketu is well placed, then it's not quiet. You can see it and you can interact with it, and you can say, this is an important part of my life, but I'm not going to let it hold me. I can see that it's a limiting factor, and I have to learn how to take just enough of it, use it, and it's like, this is like, I was using the consciousness of cigarettes to describe Ketu. The impulse to smoke cigarettes. If you have a strong Ketu, then the fact that you're smoking these cigarettes is very apparent. And you can tell yourself, I understand that I need these cigarettes, and that they're not the best for me. And if I have to go out somewhere, I know that I've got to get cigarettes. And when I don't have cigarettes, I'll be able to deal with it. I only need this many cigarettes. That's when you have a good Ketu. Whereas a person who has a weak Ketu will just not even think about it. It's like when someone tells you, do you know smoking's a bad habit? They just don't even hear that. This is this thing that gets me along, so that sucks. Not going to even think about it because I'm not going to think about how much money I lose holding on to this habit that gets me by. I'm just going to get a lot of them. And in fact, you might even get like more cigarettes than you need to, and you're not even thinking about it. It's just the nature of it, because it's quiet. It's not apparent in your consciousness. That's what happens when you have a weak Ketu. Whereas Rahu, Rahu is the result of these things. Let's say Rahu gives you, it causes you to want to hack up resin and phlegm and all these things, right? That's always going to be there. If you're smoking cigarettes, you're going to be hacking up phlegm. It's a good Rahu will get enough. You know, they'll get through the coughing. And it won't bother them that much. Ultimately, if you have a good Rahu, you're going to take that impulse and try to transform it into something else, like yoga. But the loudness of it won't bother you if you have a good Rahu. And it'll cause you to say, you know, this is this thing that's it's agitating me, but I don't take it personally. I know this is something I've taken on, and eventually, because it doesn't bother you that much, it's not a trauma, it's not a shadow. You're not taking it personally. It's not a deep part of your identity, so you can deal with it objectively. And again, take that energy, the spitting up of resin, and say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to start going to the gym. And that's when you transform that impulse into something that's more creative and constructive. That's what Rahu's all about. If your Rahu's not good, then you're just going to sit and you're going to smoke these cigarettes and you're going to say, ugh, why do I keep hacking up this crap? And you're going to get frustrated by it. And because of the fact that you're frustrated, it's going to cause trauma, and you're not going to want to deal with it. It's like, oh, you know those people who smoke cigarettes, and it's like, oh, it sucks. Oh, don't ever start. It's this horrible thing. But they can't get out of it. They're pissed about the fact that they're attached to it, and it's even more frustrating to them. Oh, I can't deal with it. It's like an alcoholic. A good, healthy person can have a beer and not get like frustrated about it and flustered about it. They're not even going to have an emotional attachment to it. Whereas an alcoholic, meaning a person with a bad Rahu, will be like, oh, I just know how much it affects me, and because of that, I'm always succumbing to it. It's a funny, ironic thing how the loudness of Rahu makes you actually not able to deal with it, whereas the quietness of Ketu makes you not able to deal with it. It's a weird, ironic thing, but that's just what it is. Now, Rahu in Virgo's desire. Let's talk a bit about Rahu and Virgo. The Rahu and Virgo desire to find constructive, constant, practical service towards others. It's all Virgo. Whether they'll have that desire and whether they'll find a good use of it, this depends on the condition of Mercury to be natural and effective and strong in its manner. Because Mercury has a nature. And if you put Mercury, the mathematical, nerdy, analytical person, in like a garden where they have to not count the numbers, they have to listen to the plants, be intuitive to the plants, sing to the plants. There's no perfect mathematical formula for how much water you've got to put on your plants. You've got to read into it. And this might frustrate a Virgo. You know, if you've got Mercury in Cancer, you've got this consciousness which is good at analyzing, but it's wasted on this emotional reality. So, like, this is the idea that Ryan gives us. It's when a planet is in bad dignity, or when it's got a Lagitati Avashta that's starving it. It's like you've got Virgo, and it can do well if you give it the time and space to analyze and research and give it the space to research. Then Mercury, that's like having Mercury in Virgo. But if Saturn is there with Mercury in Virgo, then you've got the boss right over your shoulder, and it's kind of crippling your real freedom to give yourself, you know? It's like if your boss is right over your shoulder and saying, okay, so now I need you. I know you've got talent, and I know you can research, but what I really need you to do is this specific thing, looking over your shoulder, because this is what how your father has told you to research. It's like Saturn's weird traumatic father syndrome vibe. That's like Saturn conjunct Mercury. Even though they're friends, Saturn's always a bummer and can reduce the capacities of a planet. So, this would obstruct Mercury's ability to express itself at its fullest, and therefore this would be loud if Rahu was there with Mercury and Saturn, right? In Virgo. Because we're talking about Rahu is in Virgo, it's being amplified, it's amplifying Mercury. And it depends on Mercury to express itself. So if Mercury can express itself easily, if it's in Virgo with no Saturn, then Rahu is allowed to express itself. And this loudness is channeled in a way that doesn't feed back and cause trauma, right? This is why it's so important that Rahu's lord, this case being Mercury, is in a position where it can express the potentials of that lord Mercury in a natural and spiritually ergonomical way so that no energy is lost during Rahu's venomous spike towards experiencing its ecliptic visions of what it should be doing. That was a lot to say, I know, but Rahu eventually builds up this feeling like no matter how your Ketu's been doing, Rahu wants to bring the cream to the top of that Ketu. Take the cream away from the runny milk. So Rahu is going to push you to be basically unsatisfied with that smoking that cigarette. It's going to cause the venom to pile up, the resin to pile up, and say, okay, now I have to do something that will make everything I've done more meaningful. I need to transform. And it's going to do that no matter what. But if Mercury is well placed, when that energy transformation mode comes, if Mercury is well placed, then Rahu is going to find it's going to find channels to transform constructively because Mercury has been doing what it's been naturally doing. It knows how to take that urgency and say, okay, it's time to do what I do best because I'm well placed Mercury and I've always been well placed. And when that happens, there's no trauma, there's no buildup, there's no eruption for Rahu. It erupts in a way, but it's going to build an intense experience. But this will be like an ecstatic push to a transformative area that will ultimately enlighten the person and bring them closer to the nature of their sun. Because Rahu and the sun's inspiration are deeply connected. That's if Rahu's lord is well placed. The eruption won't cause trauma. So, like in this case, since the evolutionary desire for these practical behaviors, this Virgo, this has been long repressed if Rahu is in Virgo because that is the pole that you're not used to doing. So, if the evolutionary desire for practicality and Virgo thing has been so long repressed, then now there's a dualistic desire on one hand to continue Ketu's stale pattern with the Pisces, with like, you know, I don't need to work hard to be analytical, to be practical, because I know that I have a mystical connection to the universe and I can get over all things. If I don't do my taxes properly and it comes up that I get debts, extra debt, because I wasn't Virgo, I wasn't analytical and rational and fiscally responsible when it came time to tax time, Ketu in Pisces is like, it's okay, it's all right, man, you know, like I've got this emotional wellness that's there no matter what, so I'm going to be able to I'll be able to go and meditate by myself and isolate myself and meditate on my flowers and my chakra music and all these things, and I'm going to be able to get over this opportunity that I lost. You know, this is the pattern with this person. Whereas what they really want to do is not miss the boat when it comes to tax time, because that's the Rahu. They'll be deeply more satisfied by that. Although, again, if they've got a good Ketu, then they will, at least it'll all be juicy and groovy no matter what, even though they might be living a less responsible quality of life. So, in this case, with this person, there's a desire on one hand to continue Ketu's stale pattern, and on the other hand, to release that dam and experience the unknown which Rahu lusts for. In this case, it's, you know what, like, I feel like I would be satisfied if today, this year, I am going to do my taxes and be fiscally responsible. Now, Rahu will always jump headlong into its desires. In this case, it might be like, you know, this might be a person who really almost becomes homeless, or, you know, like hits the bottom of the bucket with drugs and escapism. And this person might have a crisis where they absolutely lose it, and they have to say to themselves, okay, now I need to stop what I'm doing and get out of this. And they might almost like overdose or something like that, or they might almost lose their house, and it might be a traumatic experience. Rahu is the cigarette resin coming to the surface and saying this venom that you have to spew out. And whenever you do, if you have a well-placed Mercury, then it's not going to be that damaging. You will have been learning, if your Mercury is well placed, then you will have been doing Mercury's thing anyway. And when the time comes, it's like, you know, this isn't that bad. All I had to do was just pay attention and file my taxes and start being more responsible with my cultivating habitual habits and routines. And it wasn't that bad because my Mercury was in Virgo and it was already good anyway. So a strong Rahu determines, Rahu and its lord, Mercury, and the position of these two, aspects to these two, determines whether the person will be disappointed by the traumatic Rahu experience. If Rahu's lord, Mercury, is not well placed, then they might feel it is unsatisfying. And all of this tension that they built up, it's not worth the wear on the spirit. And it's in that case where the person smoking cigarettes, the resin comes up and they're like, you know what, like, I don't even notice this resin. I don't notice that my life sucks. I don't notice that I'm losing money. I'm just going to spit it out, and I'm not even going to try to purge myself or go to the gym or get it out of me. I'm just going to hold it in because it doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep holding in these financial losses and things because I've got a weak Mercury. In fact, they will even run away from it. If Mercury is not well placed, then they're just going to keep running away from the need to transform into Rahu. If Mercury is well placed, the universe will conspire to encourage the development of that which Rahu represents by its house placement. And in this case, Saturn will be employed to increase the amount of time that a person can remain in that crucible of transformative, positive growth potential. In this case, Saturn will help the person endure in a period where the reliable, constructive sixth house sign and Virgo themes are being thrust upon the individual, because that's going to happen at some point. And when it does happen, Saturn allows them to say, you know what, I'm getting something out of this. I can feel like there's something instructive happening here, and I have the materials, I have people around me that can help me to get through it, and they'll stay in it longer. Rahu comes and goes, and when it's there, if you've got a good Saturn, you're going to develop the richness of it, even if you've got a crappy Mercury. And if your Mercury's in Pisces with Ketu, and it's debilitated and it's got bad aspects to it, if you've got a good Saturn, in those moments where you are forced to come out of, what's it called? The bottom of the bucket? Rock bottom. If you go into rock bottom financially and everything, Saturn will go to rock bottom and it'll say, okay, I can see why it's important to spit up the resinous venom and start being more, you can hold on to those moments where you are pushing into the new Rahu reality. So, an ill placement of Mercury with Rahu and Virgo would entail that the person is bound to experience some kind of cognitive dissonance while trying to manifest the Virgo desire structure, which agitates their overall enjoyment of Rahu's energy. That's a great way to say it. I'm going to say it again. An ill placement of Mercury with Rahu and Virgo entails that this person is bound to experience some kind of cognitive dissonance while manifesting the Virgo desire structure, and this agitates their overall enjoyment of Rahu's energy. So Rahu has an energy, and if Rahu's lord is ill placed, then this agitates the enjoyment of Rahu's energy. Now, this is an important one, a point from my essay that I wanted to say in terms of astrologers. If you're looking to be a counselor, as astrologers and as counselors, sometimes we have to teach our clients to accept the fact that there are times in life where phenomena will surface which you can't resolutely fix or resolve in a permanent way as much as you want to. This person might have like Rahu and Mercury, and their Mercury might be well placed. If they've got Rahu and Mercury, there's no ill aspects to it. But let's say, for example, there is like one bad aspect. Like they've got, let's see, what's one of Mercury's enemies is Mars. If Mars is aspecting this Mercury, if everything else is cool, Virgo, the Mercury is in like Libra or Virgo, it's really close to its exaltation point. It's close to the first house, and it's got mostly these good things. But Mars is opposite to it, and Mars is having huge aspects. Since Mars is an enemy, it's a malefic too. It's going to drill Mercury and make it uncomfortable with what it does, with what Mercury does. It's the intense Mars opposite Mercury. Then, even though everything else is cool, this person, if this person is a client of yours, they got Rahu and Virgo, and Mercury is opposite Mars, then they might have everything else be good, but they might come to you and say, there is something really bothering me, and it has something to do with whatever Mars is, right? Let's say Mars rules the 5th house and the 10th house, like a Cancer rising. Then this Rahu and Virgo person will be saying, I'm usually good with keeping all my things together. I'm usually good at keeping my financial reality in check, but my creative desires, the 5th house, and my constant activity in the world, my 10th house, Mars. The world, my responsibilities, and my creative instincts are obstructing my ability to be financially well. And it bothers the hell out of me. It's super loud. I don't know what to deal with it. Like, I feel like I'm going to kill myself or kill somebody if I can't get my finances figured out. And it's so loud to me. And we as astrologers might have to tell them to consider that your Mercury is not that bad. It's just that it's super loudly being panged by Mars. And you will never be able to change that, because your Mars is important to you, isn't it? So, the client might say, well, so what do I got to do? Do I got to choose Mars or do I got to choose Mercury? And we might have to tell them that you're actually good. You're doing what you need to do in your life. You just might not be able to splurge on that bottle of fancy wine that you might want to, or you might not be able to get that new guitar pedal that you want for that 5th house to be able to express your guitar playing skills at its highest capacity. I know you want that, but you might just have to go without it, but you're still doing good with your Mercury. So, in such cases, we got to encourage our clients to combine all the powers of the whole chart to get in touch with this Rahu tension somehow. The place in their minds where Rahu desperately wants to resolve all uncertainties. That's what Rahu and Virgo does. There's this one thing that is just making me uncertain for all my plans. Because they might not ever be fully satisfied about this area, about where Mercury is, or about where Mars is, whatever is interlaced with Mercury there. They might not ever be fully satisfied with it, even though it is sufficient. Rahu's venomous, obsessive qualities may cause more damage than good with its lack of ethics, due to the nature of Rahu's primal lust for experience. But yet, you know, so that's how Rahu operates. It says, I'm used to thinking about my reality in this way, but now I can't think because what I've been doing has been obstructing me and putting me in this pit. Now I've got to act in ways of the unknown. Now I have to do what I haven't been doing. And I don't know what that is. But it's, here it is, you know? So Rahu's always going to do this. But it's the placement of Mercury, which says, whatever that thing that you're not doing is, that you've just got to, I got to explode from within and do something new. Whatever that thing is that's new will probably be not that crazy if you have a good Mercury, because you will have been doing it all this time. So, you know, even for someone, let's take a Scorpio Lagna, okay? A Scorpio rising, who has Rahu and Virgo in the 11th house. And let's say they have positive strength in Mercury. This indicates that this person could, you know, for Scorpio Lagna, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and Mars doesn't like Mercury. So if you have Rahu and Virgo and you're a Scorpio rising, you're dealing with this obsessive desire to transform in an area of your life that sucks. The 11th house always sucks. If you have Rahu and Virgo in the 11th house, it would mean that you would desperately want to be well known to people. You want to be appreciated in large groups for what you contribute and what you realistically, practically, reliably serve to a group that now would respect you. And you might have a desire, it's the 11th house, is an egoic desire that's never realistic. It's the nature of the inauspicious 11th house. So, but even for such a person, if you have positive strength in Mercury, it shows that you could sublimate the lowest egoic qualities of that 11th house. You could ventilate them and transmute them towards wholesome endeavors that in the end prove constructive to the person and those around them. They might look a little egoic. People might point at them and say, you know, like, gosh, it's like a groupie girl who, like, helps out a bunch of bands. I'm a musician, so I'm swimming in this consciousness anyway, and there's a groupie who's a Scorpio rising who has Rahu and Virgo in the 11th house. They might have a deep desire to be loved and appreciated for the work that they do. And so they do that work for the sake of being loved, for the sake of being well known. And people might see this groupie and say, she's just doing that just for attention. She's just doing this so that everyone can think that she's the good little girl, the good little slut, or the good person who's just doing all this service for everybody for her ego's sake. But if the Mercury is well placed, in her mind, in this groupie person's mind, she's doing this work, she's helping to organize the finances of the band. A groupie doesn't necessarily need to have sex or all those connotations, you know. There are some people who just want to help a band get on its feet. And this person, whether it's a girl or a guy or just a friend, doesn't need to be a girl or a groupie, could just be a friend of the band who helps them at the merch table, who helps them sell their merchandise and helps them get their music, who has a van and helps get the gear to the gig. Someone could ask this person, like, you're doing all this just to look good to the band? But to this person, it's developing on something that is constructive ultimately. Even though it's egoic, they're doing it for that sense of glory, they're expressing their Rahu and their Mercury. And it will remove the negativity of the 11th house and the fact that Virgo and Mercury are not good to the Scorpio, right? Everyone has an 11th house and its karmas to deal with. This person with Rahu and Virgo in the 11th house, they may be efficient at sublimating those lowest qualities, the egoic qualities of that 11th house or the 6th house or any evil house. And it's a great boon because then you're losing, like, I always say that life is like you're carrying this jar of water from point A to point B. And the evil houses are like holes in this jar. Now, having a good evil lord, like the 11th house, right? 11th house has this egotism associated with it, wanting to look good to everybody. But if that lord is well placed, then it'll carry you. It's an energy that's going to carry you. And if you patch up the hole, mostly, even if it's leaking a little bit, if you mostly patch up that hole, it's an evil house, but if you patch it up, you're not losing that much, right? And that's a great karmic boon. If you have a well-placed evil lord is almost as good as having an ill-placed, like, Lagna lord, or having an ill-placed 5th house or an ill-placed 9th house. Not really, because the 9th house is the most important planet in the chart. But it's something to consider. Like, the good houses are like the water in the jar. The evil houses, the bad houses, are like holes in the jar. Now, what's the point of having a lot of water if you've got a lot of holes? What's the point of having a great 1st lord, a great 5th lord, a great 9th lord, the trinal houses that are so important and intrinsic to our spirit and give us the most buoyant capacity to attract abundant energy? What's the point of having all that water if you've got an 11th house that says, you know, I've got this great 1st house, I got this great 5th house, this capacity to create, I feel connected to my role as the 9th house. If you've got a crappy 11th house lord and it's prominently placed, you're going to waste all of that on egotistical things, like trying to get gains in the 11th house. So what's the point of all that water in the jar if it's just going to get wasted on useless endeavors, on the big hole in the 11th house? If you have a good 11th lord and a good 6th house lord and a good 3rd house lord and a good 8th house lord, those are all really the evil houses. If they're all well placed, then there's no holes in the bucket, and you won't be obstructed, right? So it's a great karmic boon. So this is why I'm trying to get you guys into this consciousness of Rahu. It's so easy for an astrologer to hear about Rahu and Ketu and think, oh no, I've got Rahu in this tough place and it's hard to deal with, in this hard house. I mean, even if it's ill-placed, that's its own whole thing. That's when we get back to, like, what I said at the beginning, which is like, the bloom of a flower is just as beautiful as the bloom of a great oak tree, which lasts 1,000 years. If you got a crappy chart, it just is more grist for the mill of your spiritual awakening. So, for Rahu and Virgo, the strength and auspiciousness of Mercury and its placement is always what makes or breaks the experience. Rahu and Virgo is not bad in itself for any Lagna. And the same can be said in turn for Ketu stabilizing the energy field, and Ketu providing the platform for Rahu to safely explore the fringe of the soul's unknowns. It's Ketu, the castle, that's going to be able to hold in the energy and deal. I've put a lot of emphasis on Rahu in this essay, but it was more to just show this fact that the fact of the auspiciousness of Rahu to the Lagna, Rahu and Ketu, and how even the placement within any Lagna can always be used constructively. So, the way in which Rahu and Ketu can be thwarted is exactly in respect to the factors we've described. And it's the same thing for Ketu. I'm just catching up on the Ketu thing here. So, a Ketu in Pisces, whose Lord Jupiter, let's put Jupiter in Gemini, okay? It's bound, that person's going to lose some grasp of their energy field and their resources and the things that keep them alive and moving forward. Because Jupiter has an incapacity to express its nature in a way which will bring a positive yield to one's stores of energy. So if we have Ketu in Pisces, this is that person who's like emotionally, like they forgot to pay the rent, they forgot to pay the taxes, and now they're kind of like a bum on the street. But if they got a good Jupiter, then they're not going to be traumatized. They're going to see it all for what it is, and they're not going to be emotionally wrapped up. They're going to be moving forward. If you've got Ketu in Pisces and you've got a really good Jupiter, it's like in Cancer, it's got all good aspects, then you might have this like financial dropout phase because you don't have a good Mercury. but you'll still be grooving. You'll still be at least able to like have a faith and move forward. And when people talk to you, they're going to see that you're at least okay on the inside, even though whatever's going on with Rahu is you're a bum. But when you come up and ask someone for change in your little cup and you say, "Hi there, would you mind just, I'm just having a bit of a hard time right now. Would you mind just, if you could throw me $1, whatever you can do would be of a great help." And someone would throw you $1 versus if you had a bad K2, okay? Let's say you got a bad Rahu and a bad K2. This is the type of person who is not only they're losing the financial thing, but like they're emotionally messed up as well. The energy of Pisces, of good vibes, is crap as well. And so they're bound to lose aspects of that dimension of their energy field, which is like the thing that holds them together and keeps them moving forward. So in this case, we've got Ketu in Pisces with Jupiter in Gemini. This Jupiter, its self-realization instinct, its capacity to express its soul, as per Ketu's desire here, it's thwarted by too much thinking and analyzing. It's Jupiter starved in Gemini. And not enough doing, not enough just feeling it, right? This is the type of person who, especially, like, it's a weird because Gemini is, if you've got an ill-placed Rahu and Virgo, and Gemini is crap, then you take Ketu in Pisces with Jupiter in Gemini. Sorry. If you've got Rahu and Virgo, and the Mercury is ill-placed, then your Mercury is crap. You got no fiscal ability. Then you take the Ketu in Pisces, you take Jupiter, and you put it in Gemini. This is even more inability. They're overthinking when they should be enjoying. On the very few moments where they're not thinking and they're just enjoying the world and trying to enjoy themselves, talk to people and be flowing, they don't know how to do it because there's an internal breakup. There's an internal over-chatter that says, how do I be happy? Even though I've escaped from the world into my little hole, into my little safe spot where I've got my candles and my chakras and all these things, I'm sitting there the whole time thinking, like, how am I going to get out of this? I'm just in this thing and I just don't know how to get out of it, because the self is not just enjoying what's pouring out of the self, because Jupiter's in Gemini. All things to consider. When we consider these critical anchors to the lords of the nodes and their houses, we paint a picture of how the conditions of the lord of a node and the house of a node effectively define its power. This shows how we can orient our lives so that our nodes receive the best of, they can express the best of their lord's nature without too much undue hindrance and ill digestion on our part. So that there's no traumas, so that by the time you get to be 30 or 40, when it comes time for you to buck up and to not be Peter Pan, but to face the adult world of who you were supposed to be, you will have been developing on hopefully a good K2, which won't have wasted all that life. It'll be moving forward with everything it's done, will be feeling like there's a confidence, a goodness, a forward motion that relates to yourself and who you've been in your past lives. That's having a good K2. And down the road, when you find that you've smoked too many cigarettes and you say it's time to transform, you will find positive transformations through Rahu. That won't just be a new K2. That's what happens if you've got a good K2 but no Rahu, when it comes time to transform and time to find another way to get that cigarette hit, basically you're going to dump the cigarettes and go, okay, so maybe I should just drink coffee and eat donuts and get a hit from that, because now I'm taking the toxin out of my lungs and putting it in my blood and thickening my blood with like bad carbs and fats and all those things. You'll just basically be doing the same thing, but at least your K2 will be pushing you towards, at least moving forward towards something. When you take all these into consideration, you get a deeper picture of the depth of Rahu and Ketu and how dependent they are on their lords and their houses to express their nature. Now I'm about an hour and 20 minutes in. As usual, I always go forever, but I would love to know if you guys enjoyed this. This has been Rahu and Ketu are an important item, as anybody can attest in astrology. And I'm glad to have been able to have this little dissertation on them. I've talked a lot about Ketu and Rahu already. Stay tuned in our next episode. I'm going to give you a schema where you can really digest the themes related to Rahu and Ketu. It's as a movie production team. And this is going to integrate Mars with Ketu and Rahu with Saturn. So check it out in my next video if you enjoyed this one. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. I hope you guys dug, and I'll see you guys on the next one.